the guys for sharing their stories with us this morning, because I found it quite encouraging. It is particularly hard to stand up here and talk, but this morning I'd like to have a look at Romans 8, because there's a particular question I want to answer, and that is, what good reason would you have to believe in Jesus? What is a good reason to believe in Jesus? I remember one time I was in a butcher shop running a shop for somebody, and one of the apprentices, he asked me what I was doing on the weekend and what I had done the previous weekend. I told him I'd been at church, and to his surprise, and he said, Why do you go? Why would you spend time there? What would be the possible reason that you would want to use up your Sunday morning when you could just be lying around, or you could do something else far more practical than be here? And it made me think for a little bit. And then he added to it. And he goes, on top of that, guys, they send a bag around and collect money off you. Why would you go to church? That sounds like a waste of time, mate, and a waste of money. And I thought of answering it in a particular way, but I'm struggling not to. Like, I'm thinking this is going to be water that's going to be wasted. But I do have a reason to go to church, and that was emptiness. I was empty. I had nothing. And yet I did have so much around me, but it wasn't enough. It was good for me to go to church. So it made me think about the story of Jesus telling about a lost son. And this son goes to his dad and asks for his inheritance, and he takes it and leaves. He goes ahead and wastes it all and loses the whole lot. He ends up not being able to get a job because there's a drought, depression, all of that. Droughts happened in the land, and he goes, what can I do? He finally gets a job where he basically doesn't get paid. He's empty. And that's how he summarises his life. He said, my life is now out of my control. I'm here serving pigs, of which I want to eat their own food. It's empty. I'm hungry and I'm separated. And then he wakes up to the fact, he said, I'll go to my father. There's employment there. There's breakfast there. And there's a bed there. I will leave and go there. And so when he goes and meets up with his dad, who sees him a long way off, he runs out and meets him. And he's about to pour out his story, and he begins his story, and he says, Dad, I've done wrong by you. I've wasted. I don't deserve to be called your son. But before he gets too far into it, the father is pouring out to him commands. In other words, I know, Dad, that you will give me a job. I know that there will be food, and I know that there will be a place for me to rest. I know that. And yet the father is already pouring out in his expressions of, you are welcome. You are being restored. I want a ring on your finger. I want a coat on you. I want sandals on you. All the things that show you are my son. You are restored. And on top of that, he says, I want to have a feast. I want to have a celebration that you're home. Here is far more than what the son ever expected. Yes, there's a security. You can have a nice church family around you. You can have all of those things. But God is actually offering far more. And as he continues to pour out, he ends up having to defend his son. He doesn't ask for his two sons to come together because the other one's complaining. Dad, I don't want him here. He's not worth it. And so he goes out of his way to defend his brother from attacks. So as I was thinking about the question that was asked to me, why would you go to church? I'm thinking of Romans 8, and I'm thinking of Luke 15, where it talks about this restoration. But what does it mean for me? And there are three things that I noticed in this statement that Romans 8 makes. After Paul has said, look, Jesus dies on a cross for you, here is three things that I want you to take home. The first one is there's no condemnation. There is liberation and no separation. It is a beautiful, three beautiful statements that kind of touch me. No condemnation. Why? Well, Jesus has paid the penalty for my sin. In other words, I don't live under a judgmental God who turns around and is constantly looking at me. He's already paid the price. And I don't live like that anymore. I remember when I have lived through life, I need to remind myself of these words. No condemnation. None. You have been set free either from my condemnation of you, and you can measure your own life, but there is none coming from me. It has been paid in full. But that's not, some of us don't suffer with that kind of a problem. It's more that I live under the pressure of my own guilt because I condemn myself so often. So often I know the standard which I want to live by and I miss the mark. In my mind, he is saying, when he talks about no condemnation, he says, stop living by your own mind and what you think of you. In my mind, I'm now to live according to a life, not a failing. And I don't know how many of you have been trapped by your failings and your judgments on yourself, where God is saying you've been set free, but you won't let it affect your mind. And so as you talk to yourself, you remind yourself of how much you fail instead of living according to a life that's been given to you. I'm not continually condemning myself anymore for what I'm not doing, but I'm living towards and in step with Jesus. I can convince myself that I'm a failure, but God is saying, you're a child of mine. And for those of us who know what it's like to have children, I cannot help but not love my children. And even when they stumble and fall, and allowing them to do that doesn't mean that I don't love them. So no condemnation. The second thing I noticed in our passage is that I follow because I'm liberated. I'm liberated. It says that I'm liberated from bondage to decay. I kind of get the picture that as it's describing is that I choose a way of life that keeps on ending up worse and worse. And I think the guys express that in their testimony. That I choose a pattern that actually ends up being harmful to me and I can't stop it. And here he is saying, there's no condemnation, but there is liberation. I don't have to fall into that pattern. He says, I'll give you the Spirit, and he will say what you cannot say. He will give you a hope that you don't think is hopeful. He will put thoughts in your mind to reveal the will of God. But I think the most powerful part of it is found in verse 28. For we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, we know that in all things, it doesn't say all things are good, it says all things, he works it towards good. In being liberated, I don't have to live in my failures all the time and my choices, but he is actually able to change what I have done and make it into something good for me. Because one of the things he's doing is bringing us on a journey. And that's what he begins to describe. He said, those whom he loved, he called. And those he called, he predestined. And those he predestined, he sanctified, justified, and he glorified. In other words, life with God is taking me on a journey where I am being changed little by little, and that's why it can be hard. It's hard, and I noticed that, and with one of our, Hannah, who is standing here being really shy, this is hard for me to do. And yet she did it. And even though it took, that is what God does. He brings people alongside you to help walk through life. But the other thing that he does is that there is no separation. Regardless of what you pass through, he says, no, in all these things we are more than conquerors through him who loved us. For I am convinced that neither death nor life, neither angel nor demon, neither the present or the future or any powers, neither height nor depth nor anything else in all of creation will be able to separate us from the love of God. I kind of really like that, and especially how warm it is received in a place like a nursing home. When people begin to hear that I'm not separated, I am not become unlovely, even though people don't visit me anymore in there. And as I walk through the corridors and how much it is, and very few people are volunteering to help there, you can feel that I am separated from love. The people who care for me is now have to be paid. And that's a burden. It becomes a burden on your heart and on your mind. I am no longer lovely. God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whosoever believes in him. It doesn't say for whosoever gives an offering or for those who can actually serve. These people cannot do anything, and yet I want to remind them over and over again, and you, that whatever you pass through, you will not ever be separated from the love of God. It's not possible. It would mean that God is not in control of his own emotions. And yet he describes himself as one who says, I will continue to love you. You will not be separated. You will not be condemned. But I will liberate you if you're willing to let me touch your life. My relationship is changed. It's not meant to just be a belief in Jesus, but an experience that carries you through every stage of your life. Your Father wants and prepares for you to walk with him in a broken world. We're going to come now to the communion table, and I'm just going to give a couple of people an opportunity to give thanks for the bread and the cup, but I'm going to ask Hannah and Aaron and Annalise to come forward and to serve you with the bread and with the cup. And you can let it go past, that's fine. It's no compulsion, no guilt. But it reminds us about the life and the sacrifice of Jesus Christ that's given for you. God's gift given to you.